Guten Tag. We're not just any book club, and today we're doing German authors, which, could really apply to anybody. It's like Thomas Mann, Herman Hesse. Really, everyone sans Kafka, because we already did him.
Yeah. Some people would say sans Kafka just because he is not his national is he is not nationally German, though he is culturally German. Because he's from Prague.
Prague. Well, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know why I said Czech.
Well, Prague is in
Oh,
Czechoslovakia at the time. Yeah.
I'm Justin, who saved up.
Actually, it might have been. Where was Prague at the time? Might have been in.
You might get some German history this a little
Right now, you might get it right now.
Yeah.
Before World War One.
Just saying. We also had another brief German little history lesson on a previous episode, the medieval history episode, which you can kind of see where I am lacking in my literature skills because, oh boy, can I not read a primary source. But, Pierce over here kind of led the charge on that episode, went into a giant not tirade, what's the word? Just a section about German history from the medieval period until now? Yeah. But with that, German has a lot of culture, and with a lot of culture comes a lot of literature.
Yeah, Germany, I think, given that we are American, this kind of fits with our perceptions of Germany. Germany in America is a country in Europe that is well known and mentioned, and we know about Lederhosen, and they like beer and all that. But historically and culturally, probably the main thing that we Americans learn about them is World War II. So Americans, even though I personally think Germany is really interesting as a country, has a really interesting history outside of that mustached man, and has a really interesting culture, I know Americans tend to be less knowledgeable about them as well as the rest of Central Europe, really.
There's more to Germany than that one section.
Of history.
Yeah.
Okay, so Prague pre-World War I was in Austria-Hungary, actually, and then post-World War I, Czechoslovakia.
Interesting. I wonder if you do you want to give it a little bit of, not like broad history, but what was Germany like before World War II, as in terms of just the liberal sphere and
It's okay. Well, it's hard to
biggest misconception here, at least but I was guilty of it too. Was thinking that Germany, even before World War II, was just this very backwards place that.
Right. Something I mentioned last week was that Germany is the history of Germany is kind of a story of very liberal people being repressed by very pretty authoritarian governments up until World War One. From their formation, they had a king, an emperor, basically, and it was a very authoritarian government. But reunification, post-unification, they have always had very liberal people. One of the biggest peasant revolts in Europe took place in Germanic areas in the HRE.
Mm-hmm.
Germany's history is really a story of very liberal people and repressive governments. Between World War I and World War II, Berlin was a hotspot for things like the LGBT community, the biggest city in the world for that, people who have that kind of lifestyle. It is a misconception. Another misconception I mentioned last week was that Germans were always super anti-Semitic, and that Hitler was just making use of that. But really, being Jewish in Germany was probably one of the best places you could be, at least pre-unification. In the HRE, they, maybe a count or a king or a duke somewhere had a problem with you, but then you walk down the road to the next county or duchy or kingdom and set up shop there because that duke has no problem with Jewish people. Whereas, in more unified places like French or England, if the king has a problem with Jewish people, sucks to be you, because it's very much more centralized. But yeah, it's an interesting history that has a lot of misconceptions over here in America.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, not to say everywhere has its fair share of negative history,
All
bad history,
countries have some bad history.
but I feel like we allow the worst aspect of German history to reflect too much on Germany as a whole.
Yeah, and definitely does not reflect Germany now.
Yeah.
They've made reparations and apologized.
They're still making reparations, I believe.
Yeah. They're probably the most apologetic country.
Yeah.
From World War II, probably.
The most apologetic country who's done anything bad, probably ever. Like that bad.
Yeah.
Like, the Japanese won't admit to the rape of Nanking. The Turkish people won't admit to
the Armenian
genocide, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, more power to modern Germany for admitting their faults and the wrongs that they've done.
Yeah, and there's a lot to celebrate about Germany. See, I'm not German myself, but Pierce obviously is, and
well, I'm a little German, but
wait,
I'm not completely German. I'm very I'm like the classic American white stereotype where I'm like, oh, I'm a little this, I'm a little that.
Okay, is it like the majority? Out of the percent? This is new information to me, guys.
It's I'm like a third-ish. I'm like a third Germanic, a third British, and a third Scandinavian. Which, by the way, for any listeners who aren't from North America, the reason why white Americans tend to do that, where we're like, we're from this area in Europe, even though we have no connection really to that area, is because it's in a melting pot like this. It's a
cultural melting pot.
Yeah, it's a part of your cultural identity that you can still hold on to, even with everyone around you being from all their different own places. It's it makes sense in the situation that Americans are in. Even though it doesn't make sense to Europeans. What's up?
You get into German culture, ever since you went to a place with a thriving German community?
No, it's just because I decided to learn German. I want to be a polyglot eventually, and so I decided to start taking up German, and German culture is interesting. So, again, I will say I feel like if you get any amount into any language, you'll probably get deep into that culture, and I'm sure there's something interesting and something to love about each and every one. So it just takes getting into it.
If any listeners are curious, I'm like 98% Filipino or something ridiculously high like that. There's not that much Filipino literature aside from Jose Rizal's Touch Me Not, Forget Me Not, and then some other book that was written in protest of the colonizers. And Jose Rizal is a really interesting guy. You should look up his history. Basically, basically a Renaissance man, and wrote two of the finest pieces of literature in the Philippine history. Philippine history right now is not going the best right now. I mean, with Duterte and all that stuff. But there's something interesting there. 400 years of colonization, and they have a thriving community in America. I know I'm stumbling these words. It's not as prominent as many others, but like in California and maybe New Jersey, we're represented. But we don't have any. There won't be a Filipino Literature Month yet. Maybe. I don't know. But we're here to celebrate literature.
Yes,
Culture.
German literature. So I think I'll start with something I didn't read for this month, but I've read previously. Um, Probably one of the most important German novels of all time. I'm not going to go too deep on it because I don't think that you need the experience of reading it yourself. That novel that I'm going to mention is All Quiet on the Western Front, or in German, Im Westen nichts Neues. Um, it is a book about World War One, probably the most famous and most important war novel of all time. It's in I know in American world history classes we talk all the time about how after World War One, the silent generation, they came back home and the veterans wrote about their experiences and their experiences as veterans and all that. And it really filled the zeitgeist in on, or it became kind of the zeitgeist, knowing about um how bad being a soldier is and how bad war is. And this is kind of the prime example of that. And it's also interesting because it comes from, um, at least for an American, it's interesting because it comes from the opposite side in a war that really didn't have any good guys. It was kind of a
Yeah, it wasn't clear like World War II.
yeah. It was everyone was kind of bad. Everyone was kind of just pulled in because of a network of alliances. It was a mess. So it's interesting to read. And the reason I wanted to mention it is because it's so important. But the reason I didn't want to go too deep on it is because I think it is something to be read on your own. There is an experience to be had. Um, he certainly evokes the feeling of being in war, some of the hopelessness and some of the feelings about society that as a soldier seeing all these horrific things you might some of the thoughts you might have about society and about the people who are sending you to death essentially. um it is worth the hype. I'll leave it at that. And there's also a film coming out, so maybe watch the film, and if you like the movie,
The
it's on
German.
Netflix. It's in German. If you like the movie, it's on Netflix. Maybe give the book a read. But I'll recommend the book regardless of if you
Yeah.
are interested in the movie.
Also, the movie from 1931, 1932 is also pretty good. It actually holds up. I've been insisting that Pierce watch it. I don't know if it will ever happen, but
I might. I might.
it won Best Picture, and it's one of those movies that actually got. I don't know if it's pre-code, but it got an excuse to like show the severity of war. So they didn't hold back. They did what they could with the information and the technology they had. So it's very good. So yeah, it's one of those old
Oh,
tools that hopefully Pierce watches.
Daniel Bruhl is starring. Um, who is the I believe he was the hang on. He's in Goodbye Lenin. He was in Inglorious Bastards. He was also in the MCU, I want to say. Um,
Do you play an extra? Like,
no, he's the bad guy in Civil War, I think, unless I'm getting my actors mixed up.
hmm, I don't know.
Helmut Zemo is played by uh Daniel Bruhl. Yep, I had it right. All right. Anyways, Daniel Bruhl is very famous. Very famous German. I think he's German. Very famous actor. Spanish German.
Oh,
There you go.
huh.
But yeah, All Quiet on the Western Front. Regardless of if you watch the film, the film's not out yet, so I can't recommend that. But regardless if you're interested in that, the book is very, very good and certainly lives up to its legacy.
Might appear in this
Um,
book club one day. Who knows? Who knows?
Maybe. Do you want to do your book?
You
Since
both want to talk about Siddhartha or Siddhartha?
I was thinking you go ahead and talk about Perfume.
Oh,
We could end with
okay.
Siddhartha.
Okay. Well, Das Perfume.
Das
That's I
Parfum. Die
Okay.
Gesichte eines Mordes.
The Perfume, the story of a murderer, is the the way we say it here in America, and in other
speak,
English speaking countries.
speak American.
Speak American. Yeah, by Patrick Süskind. So this is in a weird twist of fate. Both German books that I read for this month are not set in America. In America, of course they're not. They're not in Germany.
Neither of them are set in Germany. Yep.
Yeah. Because this one takes place in France, and basically, he, and also, in my opinion, just that alone disqualifies it for the best German, the great German novel. I think this is a conversation we had many times before, or what that would be. We'll get into that later. But basically, this book is about a serial killer, a murderer who first I just love how it's written, first of all, because it kind of gets you in the perspective of this man. If you're wondering what I was saying before, it's because his last name is Grenouille. It's French for frog.
Okay.
Grenouille. G. We're just call him G. Who is born with a exquisite sense of smell, but the catch is that he has no scent of his own, and everybody kind of notices it, but like you know, that's why he's kind of unloved, and he really wants to be able to love someone through the scent of smell, and he kind of receives none of that. So he kind of just lives his life in 1738 France and Paris, and basically almost out of the wound, his mother tries to kill him because it's just like he has no scent. I want to kill him. And when he's fostered as a child, his foster mom just shows no love towards him, and it basically makes you really, really sympathetic because no one likes this kid, and he doesn't even like himself because of just no scent. However, he does begin to really develop a sense of smell that is almost exquisite, almost psychic in a way, because he can like see in the dark through his sense of smell and kind of guess someone's age. No, not even guess, just like know someone's age, their chemical composition, really. Their and even see in the dark. And he begins to develop a talent over just like the complex mixtures of scent and like perfume. And the way that the book really gets you into perspective of G, our little friend here, is that it uses prose. And a lot like Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, the prose is written so well that it makes you sympathetic with basically all the heinous stuff that he's doing because he's a terrible person. He murders people willy nilly. He's just a very bad person. It's not written first person; it's written through third person, and it's the way that he describes all the scents and the way that he says that odor is like the essence of life because it's just like it's basically breath's brother. You can't remove scent from life, and that's his entire philosophy of it. And the way that he's just so skilled with making everything, you're almost on his side, even though he doesn't have really any sympathetic qualities. It's because you kind of understand where he's coming from, and it's just it's very cynical about like how basically humanity is just focused on sensuality and how they just basically just do not care about anything else because everyone in this book is kind of surface level but not so far removed from our own life. um and it's the way that G over here kind of exploits that. He just kind of wants to do his own thing. He's very knowledgeable, he knows everything. It's basically just he's very competent. That basically it kind of works. Like you're on his side, but at arm's length, but you kind of are sympathetic to it. And it just serves as a very, very great deconstruction of like kind of rising to the top, and talent, and how talent isn't always sufficient, but like it can also be kind of bribed, all the way to the top in a way. Yeah. And fun fact, this is like Kurt Cobain's favorite book. He wrote a song called Scentless Apprentice, and the album In Utero, and it's a song that I'm not listening to because I don't really like grunge rock. Am I offending anyone here? I'm seeing Pierce's face right now. He's just like, oh.
You, it's just, it's not offensive. It's just weird that you don't like
Nirvana.
the most like influential one of the
I can
most influential
appreciate that.
bands of all time.
I do like the Foo Fighters though.
Foo Fighters. I like Foo Fighters, but they're not that
Nirvana.
influential.
Yeah, they're not, but they help protect us
Queens
from.
of the Stone Age were more influential than Nirvana
That is true.
was
That is true.
to rock music. Anyways,
Yeah.
on a
Uh,
on another note,
I mean, yeah, I think that this guy, G up here, is up there with probably the most interesting villain hero antagonistic heroes, villain heroes, maybe. He's tragic, but at the same time, sympathetic and very evil. But you kind of are on the side. I think he's up there with maybe Patrick Bateman. I'm just like he's a pathetic human being
whoa.
that is just very, hates humanity, but he also exploits them and exploits their vices, I guess, in order to really exploit them and show society for what it is. So I think that's really cool. And there has been some parallels to a real life Spanish serial killer, um, but that has not been confirmed or denied. Um, yeah, and also like again, blends fantasy and information together, and it's almost with exquisite detail that it happens. So yeah, that's all my little review. I recommend it. This is the first book that I've read. Well, first book in a while on this podcast that I have really, really, really praised it to high heavens. Which hey, that's saying something because I don't know. I feel like I don't do that enough. But guys, I like reading. It's just I just have not read a great book like this in such a long time. So that's my little spiel.
I'm excited to give it a try eventually.
The thing is with you, I'm not gonna say with you. It's just like it's very poetic, the prose, and I know that you are a fan of Hemingway and Hemingway's simplistic prose. So will it come to a clash? I don't know.
I don't think so. I can appreciate less simple prose. I think I think the problem that I have is most of the time when I read non-simple prose, it's from like older novels and
Oh, like Victorian literature, like Dickens.
stuff like that. Yeah, where they they stop being simple insofar as to it just feels like they're making it more complicated for no reason.
Hmm.
If it's just genuinely really good prose and there's more to it than there needs to be for the sake of like beauty, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. I am gonna give it a shot eventually. It's one of
Yeah.
those German
One of those
novels that
German. Yeah.
are on my list.
It's just without the prose, the book is just has no legs to stand on. It works. Also, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. It inspired a Rammstein song.
Rammstein.
Rammstein. I'm not gonna. It's German for "You Smell So Good." So whatever that song is, that song title, I'm sure it's good. I just haven't listened to it yet because yeah, it's apparently the lead singer's one of his favorite books. So
Oh, do you like so good?
yes,
So good. Yeah. I've not actually heard this song before. Okay.
do, do you listen to Rammstein?
Cool.
Oh yeah, but by the way,
I
listeners,
have
who listens to a lot of German songs.
I have occasionally I was looking when I was first looking for German music, I was looking for lesser known stuff in the US. Rammstein is pretty popular worldwide for a band that sings in German. So I was looking for stuff that what's up?
I'm just saying your Spotify rap is gonna be so German.
Yeah, it probably will be. There I still listen to music in English, so it's just gonna be a mix. We'll
Okay.
see. We'll see. We'll see come in a few months. Um okay. But yeah, that's on my list. It does sound interesting. The comparison of Patrick Bateman,
Oh,
especially the holding him up to that standard.
we'll
Um
watch the movie for that, but I will read the book one day. It's just really to understand.
oh the
Yeah, the
for yeah.
American in Paris, American Psycho. That's completely different.
um all right. So we're going to move on, I think, to Siddhartha, which we both read. So I think we'll both actually have something to say.
Yeah.
So Siddhartha is by Herman Hesse. Um, Probably in terms of like, I don't know. I was gonna say in terms of German writers, it's like he's up there near Kafka, but there are a few other authors who are nearby, like Thomas Mann and stuff. I don't know. He's up there. Herman Hesse is pretty well known. Um, but he wrote this novel Siddhartha, which it is essentially it comes up in like philosophy novels, like just like The Stranger by Albert Camus. Um, it's it's a novel that is very much more about the ideas and using a story to properly explain and show these ideas. Um,
Hmm.
and basically, the plot is that there is a I forget exactly what he is at the beginning, but it's he's in an
It's
ancient
high, yeah. Isn't he like high class?
yeah like upper
Yeah,
class or something.
upper class. Yeah.
Um, it sounded like he was like a monk though, because he learned how to like, or no, he learned how to fast with the ascetics. Never mind. Okay, so yeah, he's like upper class or whatever.
In
And he
Nepal.
decides to leave home to try and become spiritually enlightened, and he becomes an ascetic. He learns to fast. He lives in the woods. He gets rid of all of his personal possessions. He meditates. Um, he eventually speaks to the Buddha, the real Buddha, I would assume.
Mhm.
Um, and he acknowledges that the Buddha's teachings were very elegant. Um, and his friend, who he left home with, joins the Buddha, but he does not follow, and he needs to he basically essentially decides he needs to figure it out for himself. He needs to learn the Buddha's teachings himself. Um, you need to find your own meaning, and so he goes on and he finds a river and a ferryman, and he can't pay. The ferryman is like, "Go ahead. I'm sure it'll come back around to me sooner or later."
Mm.
He discovers a woman, Kamala, in town who's very beautiful, and he becomes wealthy to earn her affection and love. He starts pursuing material things. He learns how to be a merchant, a capitalist, essentially. Um, and is he becomes very wealthy. He gambles all the time. He drinks. He pursues um, pleasures such as like lovemaking with Kamala and um, the drink. And I
Mm.
think he doesn't do drugs, does he, or whatever?
Just
Does he
snort a
do any
lot.
drugs? He does. He essentially is just lives the life of pleasure.
Had a
Um,
hedonist.
a hedonist, yeah, hedonistic pleasure. Um, and all of a sudden, he is contemplating suicide because he's fed up with life, and he has this very internal experience and hears this holy word Om that he learned when he was much younger.
Was that
A lot of time has passed. It's been like 20 to 30 years.
yeah?
Like he was a capitalist for a long time. Um, and so he just leaves. He I think he like passes out in the forest, and Govinda, his friend from when he was a child, happens to be passing through and waits until he wakes up. Siddhartha recognizes him. Govinda does not recognize Siddhartha, but they have a conversation, and then Govinda leaves. Um, Siddhartha feels a spiritual connection with the river and decides to make his life there. He meets with the ferryman, and they the ferryman tries to relate the meaning that he gets from the river to Siddhartha, and Siddhartha learns a lot from him and from the river, and he starts living a life that he finds meaningful. Um, he is able to listen and understand the river, and the river has these messages they send to him. Um, Later, Kamala, on the way to watch the Buddha die, is bitten by a snake, and makes it to the river only to die after Siddhartha, or I think the ferryman, brings her back to their hut that he and Siddhartha have together. And he finds out he has a son, and he's trying to teach his son the way, um, his way.
Mm-hmm.
But the son he doesn't take to it. He's mad at his father, and eventually he goes off on his own. Um, and I guess I'm trying to get into philosophical stuff, but not because I want to leave it. But he listens to the river, and and he realizes that time is an illusion, and so his feelings and his experiences are they're all kind of come together into this like great line of time. There's not really um anything that you're feeling right now. In the end, like, right now is an illusion. There were all those times that you were feeling amazing, and um times that you will feel better, and so um the moment the suffering that you feel in the moment doesn't quite matter all that much. um And then the ferryman, his friend that he's been working with for many years at this point, then says that his work is done, and he walks off into the woods, never to be seen again. Um, Govinda, towards the end of both of their lives, comes to find Siddhartha, hearing about a very wise, enlightened ferryman. Um, and Siddhartha, in this, I think it's the last chapter or second to last chapter, Siddhartha really kind of lays out his philosophy on suffering and what enlightenment means and all of that. Uh, and Govinda doesn't quite get it. Govinda at this point is like a very good follower of Buddha, and he's listened to the Buddha his whole life, but he still doesn't feel enlightened. And so he goes to Siddhartha, and Siddhartha starts talking to him about. I wrote down some quotes. Let me see if I can find them, because I was like, "Wow, this is interesting."
It's a book full of really good quotes.
Yeah, it is. When someone is seeking, it happens quite easily that he only sees the thing that he is seeking. He is unable to find anything, unable to absorb anything, because he is only thinking of the thing he is seeking because he has a goal, because he is obsessed with that goal. Seeking means to have a goal, but finding means to be free, to be receptive, to have no goal. Um, Oh, and then I wrote like a whole page here because I
Wow.
it was very good. Maybe I'll read this in a second. But essentially the point is that he starts relaying all these things that I think you can take a lot of meaning out of individually. If you even if going line by line, I think you'd be able to find something meaningful in a lot of this chapter. Uh and Govinda doesn't quite understand it at the time. Um and he doesn't understand how you could find meaning in this, but he looks at Siddhartha and he goes, but this is an enlightened man. He can tell in his smile and the way that he looks around at things and the way that he moves the ferry down the river that this man is enlightened. He knows for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but alas, Govinda needs to find his own enlightenment, and so they part ways. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Yeah. It is very it's within even though it's a very short book, it's very dense. As
Hmm.
in like there's a lot of concepts. Um, and really, I think what Herman
What
is trying to get.
one thing I do want to say about it being dense is that it is not dense in that it is difficult to read or that
Yeah.
it takes a long time. I blew through this book in this is probably the shortest amount of time it's taken me to read a novel in a long time. Um, but yes, go on.
Yeah. I think what Herman Hesse is trying to get here is that it's not about like really experiencing or really trying to try to learn about it. It's really about understanding what reality and enlightenment is. It's not, yeah, you're not going to get through intellectual methods by looking into a book or like trying to immerse yourself in the pleasures of the world. It's about really just understanding the human connection, and I find that really pleasant to think about. It's just like, you know, it just comes to you. And I again, we're not very familiar. I'm at least I'm assuming that Pierce isn't very familiar with Buddhist culture or the
Hmm.
religion itself, but I know that it's all about just like finding your inner peace and
Hmm.
just like finding enlightenment. That's really your goal in life, which I think, even from like an agnostic point of view, it's like it's something that you should really try to achieve. Um, and no one can really tell you how to really achieve that. It's just really up to you, and I think it's tailored to other people, what that really is for them.
Right.
So yeah,
I think to me the major thing that I took from it was about the concept of time and our experiences as people. The interesting thing about this about Herman Hesse's Siddhartha is because it's such a mixture of different religious and philosophical and regional ideas from all over the world, individualism, Buddhism. Um, and in the end, I think the major thing I think to take from it is that we need to be conscious about the our complete existences. That even though times are hard or can be difficult, we need to be conscious of the fact that things have been better or will get better or are better at some other time in our lives, and that makes the struggles seem to matter less because overall our lives are still filled with all of these great moments, and it also gives us kind of a degree of separation from the greatly positive things to not get so lost in the pleasure of certain aspects of life, um, because there are going to be these other aspects of suffering that we know are coming down the pipeline or that we have had in the past. Um, but yeah.
yeah. More of this to come in a future episode, maybe.
in a future philosophy episode that might come at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
If you really wonder if like there, I just want to say, Pixar's Soul, the movie that came out 2 years ago, kind
mm,
of touches on this. Just like, not really achieving for greatness, just achieving inner peace.
yeah,
That's something we should.
I'm just skimming through this thing that I wrote down, and I think I'm gonna read part of it if that's okay with you.
Read it.
During deep meditation, it is possible to dispel time, to see simultaneously all the past, present, future, and then everything is good. Everything is perfect. Everything is Brahman. Therefore, it seems to me that everything that exists is good. Death as well as life, sin as well as holiness, wisdom as well as folly. Everything is necessary. Everything needs only my agreement, my assent, my loving understanding. Then all is well with me, and nothing can harm me. Um, which I guess kind of that quote, the reason I was reading over it and wanted to say it out loud is it kind of brings the two things that we were each pulling together. Where he talks about time and simply being okay with suffering, assenting to suffering, being okay with it. Um, and also just being accepting of it, which is the second part of that. Finding your own inner peace, understanding, giving understanding to the way that things are outside of your control, in the way that um, your human experience has unfolded, and the way that the world is outside of your actions.
That is very pleasant. Yeah. I wish I had more to add. I think you really summed it up.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about the title and maybe some names in here because this is set in a different country.
Yeah,
This is set in Nepal.
sure.
So it does take
In 1 second, just because I did want to say one more thing,
Ooh,
um, which I'm now forgetting. So go ahead.
okay. Well, Siddhartha. This is really off the Wikipedia page, but it's made of two words in the Sanskrit language, Siddha. I'm not probably not pronouncing this correctly. I'm pretty sure this is a very common trend in all our episodes. Siddha means achieved, and Artha means what was it searched for. So, but those two words together and hot glue them together, it means he who has found meaning of existence, or he who has attained his goals. And Buddha, this is the before Buddha's own name before his renunciation was Siddhartha Gautama, um, Prince of Kapil Vastu. In this book, the Buddha is referred to as Gautama. So I probably butchered that pronunciation, but you can read that Wikipedia page for yourself. It's like the first sentence on there. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is taking a lot of influence from other cultures.
It's I remember what I wanted to say. It's a very interesting book, and it's something that I think everyone should probably read at some point. It's similar to A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, in that that's another one that I think everyone should read given
Yeah,
the chance to. Um
both from Germany.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
Frankl was from Germany as well. He's Jewish, but yes. But yeah, it's something that I think everyone should read, and it's at different points of your life you're going to pull more or less from this. I think if I had read this a few years ago, it would have been more helpful to me than it is today. Um, However, I still there were still things that I pulled from it, that I was reminded of, that I learned thinking about it. Um, and at the same time, as I was reading it, I was thinking there were people I know who are much older than me, who, kind of, I think, could pull a thing or two out of this. Um,
That's a lot of people, really.
yeah, honestly. But the point is, there's a lot of wisdom packed into 150 pages here, so it's well worth the read. It's an easy read, and it's something that should be helpful in some capacity to everyone.
Probably a good introductory to philosophical fiction. Probably.
Yeah, probably. It's probably a good book to just get yourself reading again in general, because it's a quick read. It's the actual language is pretty easy to understand, even though some
It's
of the
uplifting.
ideas are a little
It's not like
complex.
The Stranger by Albert
It's
Camus.
right. It's uplifting. There's a lot to like about it. So definitely, I think that's 3 for 3 on recommendations for the 3 books we talked about. But
Yep.
yeah, German literature pretty good. I've read a few books by Kafka now. That's also recommended. I have not read something from Germany that I have disliked personally. So
Keep
um,
that streak going.
yeah, if you are interested in giving a shot to maybe a culture's literature that you haven't read yet, I can personally heavily recommend German literature.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. I think that about wraps it up. So next month, I guess we'll announce. Next month is our, classic horror month because it's October. This month,
horror. Sorry. Okay. Next month, you're gonna realize how bad. Do I have a Jersey accent? Well, I don't know, but you're gonna know how badly
Justin brings up how horror is pronounced all the time.
Horror.
But this year we decided to take it a little bit out of left field. We're gonna do kind of abstract horror. I don't want to call it weird horror because weird horror is specifically kind of like a cosmic horror-y branch. It's like in that
Trying to move away from
vein.
Lovecraft here.
We're trying to move away from Lovecraft, so I'm saying abstract horror. It's still weird, but it's not literally like the genre weird horror.
Yeah, think of David Lynch, maybe, or perhaps
Or-
the movie.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Or perhaps the film we'll be watching in 2 weeks.
Okay.
The
I thought you would-
Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse.
Yeah, so that's a movie we've both been looking forward to.
We don't know if
watching
it's
at some
horror
point.
movie. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't really know what it's about, but it said horror on it, so sure. And it sounded pretty abstract, so works for me. And it's an excuse to watch this movie that's pretty well liked. But yeah, if you like this episode, please give us a like, a rating, subscribe, follow us, whatever it is on whatever platform. We'd really appreciate it. You can also find us on Twitter at NutsAndAPod, where you'll find information on everything related to this podcast. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. Of course. Auf Wiedersehen, Prometheus.